But we cannot underestimate the fact that the foreign adversaries have a voice in the Louisiana state legislature because, Chris, do you want to tell me why? Because they're taking money from foreign adversaries.
Exactly, which is what we talked about yesterday. And when you can make large donations to American politicians or Louisiana politicians, then guess what? You get your nose in the tent, you get to control those politicians and influence those politicians, which takes me back to House Bill 590, not to rehash it, but that bill would have absolutely prohibited that type of nefarious financial donations to our campaigns, and that died on the Senate floor because of Cameron Henry. This bill, SB 229 by Blake Miguez, would have absolutely protected our state from this foreign menace, people who want to take us out and destroy us. He amended his bill, tried to cooperate with them to address their concerns, brought it back, and then he couldn't get anybody to move the bill forward, even with amendments. What does that tell you about these people? I mean,
it tells me that they're owned by our foreign adversaries. That's what it tells me.
And it tells me that we have a critical task ahead of us, which is to remove these people from office, period.
Yes.
Get them out of there and bring people in who understand the real threats that we face and are not preoccupied with enriching themselves and catering to our enemies and to their donors.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the State of Freedom this Tuesday. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you as always. I'm Danielle Walker, and I'm joined by my partner in bringing truth to light, Chris Alexander. As you might expect, we have another jam-packed episode for you today. This is the third installment of our recap of Louisiana's 2025 regular legislative session. I wouldn't call it regular. I would call it irregular. I'm not sure that regular is a great way to define it. But we are covering bills today that range from state sovereignty, illegal immigrants, budget reform, DEI and merit-based job security and hiring, and criminal justice. So it's a wide range of topics to cover here today, but we hope to do it for you faithfully and truthfully. Before we get into it, let me read the scripture of the day. It is Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verses 1 through 7. And it's in the Message translation. It says, "There's nothing better than being wise, knowing how to interpret the meaning of life. Wisdom puts light in the eyes and gives gentleness to words and manners. Do what your king commands. You gave a sacred oath of obedience. Don't worryingly second-guess your orders or try to back out when the task is unpleasant. You're serving his pleasure, not yours. The king has the last word. Who dares say to him, 'What are you doing?' Carrying out orders won't hurt you a bit. The wise person obeys promptly and accurately. Yes, there's a right time and way for everything, even though, unfortunately, we miss it for the most part. It's true that no one knows what's going to happen or when. Who's around to tell us?" And those are words written by King Solomon, the wisest man to ever live, at least up until his time. And he understood that the Lord, our God, is our king, and he is far more wise than us. And we are foolish when we question the Lord's instruction or delay in obedience to his command. If we are with the Lord, if we've given our lives and our rights to ourself to the Lord, our job and his expectation of us is quick and full obedience. Just because we don't understand doesn't give us the right to not follow through. How many of us have had interactions with children or young employees that don't need to understand the full reason behind our instruction? They just need to do it. Well, that's our position with the Lord. Yes, of course, we can discuss these matters with him in prayer, but a lack of understanding on our part does not give us a free pass to disobey or to delay. Just like the child or the young employee, we will find out if and when the Lord sees to reveal the reason behind the instruction. We may never, ever know, but we are duty-bound to obey. And thankfully, we absolutely do know that we can trust him and that his instructions are for our good.
Yeah. Danielle, the difference between the humanist, the atheist, and the Christian is that, precisely alluding to your prayer and to your point, is that they believe that everything that can be known must be able to be discerned rationally and logically and
Yeah.
strictly from an intellectual point of view. And there is no room for faith. And our perspective is that simply because we don't fully understand something, or if something becomes unpleasant, that therefore it can't be true, it can't be meritorious, and so we just go and do something else. We move forward. But I think the fundamental mark of the Christian is that it's precisely in those moments when we don't understand fully what the ultimate plan is, or things do become unpleasant, that we keep moving forward, and that's where our faith comes in. And I think that that is a very powerful reminder from King Solomon today in Ecclesiastes of that reality and what really is the distinctive mark of the Christian. The fact that we are filled with faith, even when faith appears to contradict the rational mind. God ultimately is a mystery, and his ways are way above our ways. So we have to pray constantly for the grace to keep moving forward and to discern his will, even if we don't fully understand it. That is critically important. In fact, probably the foundational character of the Christian.
Yeah. Well said, Chris. Absolutely. Uh, I- I was just so struck by this morning because it's it's very easy to say, well, I don't understand, so I'm just going to hold off until I can understand. Well,
Yeah,
that's not what the instruction is. The instruction is do it.
do it. And Danielle, I think that the two flaws, characteristic flaws of even Christians, and I think it seems to run across the board, is one, they seem to stop when they don't fully understand, or they seem to stop when things get difficult or unpleasant. And both of those issues are addressed very, very eloquently in the scripture passage that you read today.
Yeah. And Chris, maybe we should let the listeners know. Maybe you can let Katie know real quick. But our producer said that YouTube, X, and Facebook are not working for our live stream. So I think Rumble may be the only place to catch us live today.
Okay, great. I will make sure that we let her know that.
Okay. Well, we can go ahead and get started. I know we've got a lot of ground to cover here. And this is, like I said, part 3 in a 4-part recap series of the legislative session. And I think a lot of people really showed their true colors this session, and that it was disappointing in a lot of ways to see people in a different light than we thought that they truly operated. They may have operated in a lot of ways very different to the way that they campaigned. And you've warned us of that for a long time, Chris. That was your warning as soon as I met you. That was your warning that so many times politicians will say one thing when they're campaigning, and then when the rubber meets the road, when the pressure of the governor bears down upon them, they suddenly get squeezed and behave in a very, very contrary manner to the way that they even perhaps hoped to operate. So true colors have come out, and the true mettle of men and women is being seen. And I knew that that was true, but whenever we sat down with so many of those candidates 2 years ago and talked to them, and you really get to the place where you believe that they're earnest, and coming from a good place, and I think that they were coming from a good place, and they probably intend to come from a good place, but the pressure, it maybe has just gotten to be too much for them to stick to what their core foundational ideals were.
Yeah, and Danielle, it's so axiomatic that no matter what a person tells you about who they are and what they are and what they represent, only circumstances really are the ultimate evidence of what a person's character is.
Yeah.
Circumstances, temptation, difficulty. That's really the acid test. Talk
Yeah.
really is cheap,
Yeah.
as we've seen so many times with these politicians who represent certain things when they're running for office, even certain things while they're in the position. And yet the things that they do and the way that they vote are often totally inconsistent for any manner of reason, for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
But usually it comes down to either the desire, the temptation towards self enrichment, or simply fear of doing the right thing. Fear and temptation toward avarice are huge, powerful tools of the devil to draw us away from doing what we should do, which is our duty. And nobody is immune from it.
Yeah, it's true. And of course, some people voted in a way that's not in alignment with necessarily the way we viewed it, but they voted that way because it was in alignment with their convictions. And we respect that wholly.
100%. I always have real respect for intellectual differences and would always protect the sacred right for people to express genuine intellectual differences, no matter what they are. That's very important. The issue that you and I are addressing and constantly harping on is the hypocrisy, which is the difference between what certain Republican legislators say when they're running for office and then how they vote and what they do once they get there. And that's not genuine intellectual uh, difference. That is just moral and ethical and intellectual hypocrisy. And that's what we oppose and are trying to cleanse our legislature of.
We are. It may take some time, but that's the goal.
And there
All
are
right.
some good ones, thank God, some good
Yeah.
ones who've remained good since we helped them get there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's start off with the topic of state sovereignty, Chris. The first bill under that moniker is House Bill 64 by Representative Mike Johnson. And this is the bill, and we've talked about it quite a bit this session. We followed it closely, but it would allow the Attorney General or underscores the Attorney General's ability to represent localities and step in when the federal government is encroaching or overreaching, as they did, as you've pointed out many times during COVID, as an example.
Very, very good bill. And we have given public recognition to Liz Muriel, who's behind the bill, and also Representative Mike Johnson. And just for the benefit of the listeners, the last time this bill came up, I gave an example of what we were talking about. You know, because the bill will allow the attorney general and the governor to nullify or to disapprove of any proposed consent agreement between any local municipality or any public official in Louisiana and the federal government. And the example that we gave was these draconian consent agreements that really had their origin in the Biden administration, where the federal Justice Department would go invade these local municipalities, these local police departments, who really were not doing anything wrong, were not violating the Constitution. But you know what Cardinal Richelieu said? He said, "You show me four of the noblest actions of the noblest man, and I will find an excuse in those actions to hang him. You show me four of the most powerful lines written by the most honest and pure man, and I'll find an excuse in those lines to hang him." And so the point is, the federal government can always find something to hitch their wagon to when it comes to looking for every little violation, civil rights violation, constitutional violation. And that's what they were doing because they were trying to assume control over these local police departments and turn them into weapons of their political agenda. That's
Yeah.
what they were trying to do. And so they would force them into these consent agreements, extract all kind of money from them, and basically control local and even state law enforcement agencies for years and years and years, with them existing under the specter of federal oppression. That is what this bill is designed to address, and it would allow the attorney general and the governor to nullify, to rescind, or to simply prohibit any such consent agreement between local municipalities and the federal government because they infringe directly upon our rights under the 10th Amendment as a state sovereign. So that's why this bill is so important, and why Attorney General Muriel and Mike Johnson deserve a lot of credit for this legislation.
Yeah, certainly. The House passed it 72 to 25 on a party line vote. Barbara Freiberg was absent because she has a very, very difficult time, in my opinion, of voting for good legislation. And if you can't vote against it, you at least can be absent, must be her motto. Yeah, she's had a lot of absences on
She
votes
sure
asserting
has.
state sovereignty, especially, I mean, both against federal government overreach and foreign actors. So
Yeah.
I think that,
But she's never seems to be absent when it comes to voting against legislation to allow parental access to the itinerary for school children, what they're studying, or votes regarding removing DEI from our public agencies in our schools. She always
yeah.
seems to find her way into the chamber for those votes.
Yeah, it does seem to be that she's very able to vote on those. All right. Well, this okay, it passed the Senate on 27-11 on a party line vote, and the governor signed it, and it became effective immediately on June 11th. So that is a great one, and
Thank you, Governor Landry, for signing the legislation.
we're proud of that one.
The secret to losing weight 2 times faster has gone viral. See the transformations hundreds of thousands of people are experiencing around the world with the Slenderized drops. These homeopathic drops are proven to control appetite, support thyroid function, help balance the body's pH, improve energy, boost mood, and increase metabolic rate. I've heard firsthand testimonials from droppers in their 20s to droppers in their 80s who say that the Slenderized drops have completely revolutionized their lives. Try the drops today to see the results for yourself. To learn more about the Slenderized drops or other incredible natural wellness and lifestyle products, email me at info@freedomstate.us and put drops in the subject line, or visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. We also have links to those in the show notes. Thank you for supporting the state of freedom.
The next bill did not have such a lovely fate, and that is Senate Bill 226 by Senator Valerie Hodges. This bill would have prohibited foreign adversaries and foreign actors from holding immovable property within 50 miles of military installations, and it would have also protected the citizens of the state from having voting equipment, including computers, including software, including poll books that would have any nexus or origin or connection whatsoever to a foreign adversarial country. Unfortunately, it was gutted mercilessly in Senate Jude A, which we heard Representative Beryl Amade call a couple, I guess it was last week at the We the People meeting. She called it the kill committee. And that's exactly what we saw this session. Senate Jude A was the place that you would send a bill if you wanted it to die.
Yes. If the Senate floor historically is the place where good legislation goes to die, then Senate Jude A is the place where good bills go to committee to die before they even get to the floor.
Yeah.
And Beryl Amade is 100% right about this. This legislation was very, very important. And as you said, Danielle, both the election provisions that would have codified President Trump's executive orders regarding elections, and a very strong provision regarding the military's capacity to expropriate land owned by a sworn foreign adversary if that property is within 50 miles of a military base or other critical infrastructure, both gutted in Senate Jude A by Greg Miller with the help of Democrat Senator Comrade Greg Miller with the help of Senate Democrat Jay Luno. And it's important here, they don't have any excuse at all for having done this, but just to add a little more context to it, when the objection was made by Senator Miller that this is 50 miles, that's a big radius. Are you sure that that's the right distance or whatever? Senator Hodges would have been happy. She maybe not happy, but she would have been willing to reduce the distance to 20, 30 miles, maybe even 15 miles from a military base. And she would have even been willing to amend it to say that it can only be expropriated if there is an active effort to surveil or other nefarious activities by the foreign adversary. So she was willing to make some concessions, but they were having none of it. They completely gutted that provision of the bill. And as I said a minute ago, gutted the provisions that would have prohibited Nancy Landry from going forward with computer-based voting system until President Trump's executive orders, the findings of those orders are returned and come back. I am just continue to be inflamed, disturbed, and concerned about the conduct of Comrade Miller, and his name is so appropriate.
Yeah. Chris, when we were talking about this bill again this morning, and we've talked about it many times over the course of this session, I was so enraged again. And maybe I was channeling some of that President Trump energy from this morning that I saw him give the reporters. He's pretty angry right now. That's the level of rage I feel right now about this bill. And I'll tell you why. Because, okay, the people that Senator Comrade Miller is protecting are foreign adversaries, people who want to kill us, people who want to rape your kids, people who want to steal your property, people who have no respect for this country because they came here illegally, or I mean, I guess if they're if they're foreign adversaries, they came here illegally in some way. They're some way operating illegally in this country. So what I want to say is, and I don't know if I've made this point before, but I feel it very strongly. The same people who vote to, and I'll do the same thing. These are not necessarily the same exact people because it's a different committee. But I think about House Natural Resources, Chris, and I think about the fact that there are legislators, plenty of legislators who had absolutely no problem saying that the private property of tax-paying citizens can be expropriated by private companies are the same legislators, the same mindset of people that are saying, you know what? We don't want you to take away the property of our foreign adversaries if it's too close to a military installation. Don't you think that's too harsh? No, it is not. No, it's not too harsh. It's not even close to too harsh. I don't think they understand what too harsh is. And furthermore, that property is dead property, right? If we know that they own it, they're here illegally or operating in some manner that's contrary to state or federal law, they're out of here under President Trump, under Tom Homan. So let me tell you, that is dead property. That is property that the state could be expropriating and selling for money that would relieve us of our tax pressure. That would be very well suited to go into the Doge mindset. So I could not be more angry about this if I tried.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Danielle. And the contrast that you just made is absolutely stunning, and it's very precise. The contrast you just made, because on carbon capture sequestration, the state has ratified and authorized the seizure of private property from Louisiana citizens by companies for pure economic enrichment, yet they're unwilling to expropriate the property owned and controlled by sworn foreign adversaries that's located within a certain distance of critical military installations. Think about that. On the one hand, they won't protect our property. On the other hand, they're bending over backwards to protect the property owned by our enemies. And that, to me, is just way beyond the pale. It should enrage every Louisiana citizen. And that is very insightful of you, that analogy, precisely because both of those issues deal with immovable property.
Well, I'm shaking with rage over here. Maybe I'll be over it by lunchtime. I'm not sure, but this deserves to get. I want to see Comrade Miller thrown out of the legislature, whether that has to wait until his next election or not. This kind of behavior, and look, Senator Luno, I'm no fan of Senator Luno, not even in the neighborhood of a fan of Senator Luno, because of the way he treats his peers, just as a starting point. But the way that they behaved, berated, gutted this piece of legislation that is to protect us is so outrageous that I can't wait to see some political backlash for this, Chris.
And I believe that the political backlash is boiling. I truly do. I think that
Yeah.
citizens more and more every day are becoming aware of this legislation and what happened to it, and contrasting the way our legislature and even our governor, their posture toward the threats our infrastructure faces from foreign adversaries, contrasting that with the Trump administration's posture and Tom Homan's posture, as you said just a few minutes ago. And the contrast could not be any more stark.
Yeah. And Chris, would you mind? We did hear back from Senator Miguez on that piece of legislation we mentioned last show that he brought, but it never, he couldn't get it off the ground in committee because no one in committee was willing to really take a hard look at the fact that we face serious foreign threats on our on our shores within the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, and that was SB 229. It was an America First bill precisely to stop China's influence in Louisiana. Senator Miguel said at the initial committee hearing, there were a lot of people who had, quote, concerns about his bill. Does that sound familiar, Danielle?
Yeah.
So he worked with the White House policy folks to amend the bill to address the concern. There were multiple amendments in the bill. He brought it back the following week for a second hearing, and they objected to him putting the amendments on the bill to address their concerns. So they expressed concerns. He amends the bill to address their concerns, and then they object to him putting the amendments on the bill.
Yeah.
And then no one on the committee would make a motion to move his bill forward. And Senator Miguez and Senator Connick, and we're going to have to find this, got into an exchange about what Senator Miguez perceived to be Senator Connick's lack of concern about the national security threat that China poses to our freedom. So that very important bill also died in committee. And it's unfortunate that even Republicans, in this case, apparently Senator Connick, is apparently not able to understand and see that this country spends every waking hour doing one of two things: either oppressing its own citizenry with tyranny or plotting ways to destroy our liberty and our freedom in this country. That's what China desires. And I can't believe that there are still people walking around laboring under the illusion that these people are not our sworn enemies. Where does that come from? Why do people not understand this?
Well, Chris, I tend to be a lot more cynical than you, and I don't think that they don't understand. It's very obvious what China is doing. I mean, if anyone was awake at all, if you didn't sleep through last summer where those balloons were flying over the United States, surveilling our military installations, and they're known to be from China, then what are you doing? Our legislature is an embarrassment right now. And not the whole legislature, but the fact that a bill like this couldn't even get out of committee is embarrassing. And not only embarrassing, it's enraging because they use the same stupid, lying excuses that they used on Representative Cruz's gold and silver bill, right? They say that they have all these concerns, all these objections. Well, it wouldn't matter if you changed it, put it upside down. I mean, maybe they would only vote for it if you wrote it in Chinese.
You know, exactly. Well, maybe we need to make a suggestion to Blake that he needs to broaden his linguistic capacity and start bringing his
Maybe his
legislation in
he
China.
should bring his legislation in Chinese. But my point here, Chris, is I'm so sick of these people not being transparent about what the real issue is. The real issue is they're obviously taking orders from someone who has an opposition to that, and it may be foreign industry, it may be foreign adversaries altogether, but we cannot underestimate the fact that the foreign adversaries have a voice in the Louisiana state legislature because, Chris, do you want to tell me why? Because they're taking money from foreign adversaries.
Exactly, which is what we talked about yesterday. And when you can make large donations to American politicians or Louisiana politicians, then guess what? You get your nose in the tent. You get to control those politicians and influence those politicians, which takes me back to House Bill 590, not to rehash it, but that bill would have absolutely prohibited that type of nefarious financial donations to our campaigns, and that died on the Senate floor because of Cameron Henry. This bill, SB 229 by Blake Miguez, would have absolutely protected our state from this foreign menace, people who want to take us out and destroy us. He amended his bill, tried to cooperate with them to address their concerns, brought it back, and then he couldn't get anybody to move the bill forward, even with amendments. What does that tell you about these people? I mean,
It tells me that they're owned by our foreign adversaries. That's what it tells me.
and it tells me that we have a critical task ahead of us, which is to remove these people from office, period.
Yes.
Get them
Yes.
out of there and bring people in who understand the real threats that we face and are not preoccupied with enriching themselves and catering to our enemies and to their donors.
Yes.
That's what's going on,
And
because it's like the hierarchy: donors, lobbyists, foreign nationals, and Louisiana citizens are lucky to fall in at number 4,
maybe.
maybe number 4.
Well, we get all the laws passed that govern how we are allowed to behave, Chris. Because we are little peons that need to be minded by big brother government, while the adversaries can run wild, have property, probably not pay taxes. They can do whatever the hell they want. But
Yeah, they
us,
can
we're
own
going to get pulled
property.
over. We're going to get pulled over for talking on a cell phone.
Exactly. We're going to get pulled over for talking on a cell phone. We're not going to be able to go do a lawful exit interview
That's
in
right.
violation of our free speech rights. And yet our foreign adversaries, people who want to kill us, can own property within 50 miles of a military base without any questions asked and no problems whatsoever. Nancy Landry can go forward and buy a $150 million computer-based voting system in total violation of pending executive orders from President Trump. We can't get that codified into law. It's like, where are your priorities?
They told
Louisiana
us.
citizens are like the redheaded stepchild here that have absolutely no standing before you. We're merely tolerated. The Constitution appears to be simply an impediment to get to what you want to try to get to here. And we play second, third, fourth fiddle to other priorities that you have. And people wonder why our state is dysfunctional as it is, and why Louisiana citizens are so enraged with the lack of response from our government. You need to look no farther right now than bills like this in the Louisiana legislature. This is what makes people demoralized and deludes them and makes them want to just walk away and never have anything to do with it. But fortunately, Danielle, there are those among us who do not respond that way. There are those among us who simply focus more, work harder, become even more tenacious, and use it as motivation. And you are one of those. And there are others as well.
Well, thanks, Chris. I feel like you're putting me back on the path now because my rage has put me in an off-road vehicle right now. But I do want you to please include Senator Miguez's SB 229 in the scorecard. And I would just also want to use this opportunity to encourage our listeners, keep an eye on the scorecard. It's getting updated. We're in the process of doing that right now. But anyone who has a score that is in your district that falls below what you deem to be an acceptable level, please start recruiting someone to run against them. We need to start recruiting people now. We absolutely do. Of course, you know my mantra, we have to fix the elections if we want to see any changes whatsoever. But there's no reason those two things can't happen in parallel. We cannot be left holding the bag at the 11th hour, not having good, strong, solid, dependable candidates to run against some of these criminals.
No question about it. And also, just to add to that, Danielle, to the listeners, if the score of your rep or senator is bad or not satisfactory, that means that there is ample ammunition to go forward and run against that legislator or that senator. So you don't, if they have a low score, that means that we have plenty of firepower to beat them. So use
That's
that
right.
as encouragement to make a decision to run or to recruit one of your friends to run. We have the information
Yes,
meticulously and categorized, and we will share it and we will help you. But they can't lose if they don't have anybody running against them.
that's right. That's absolutely right. All right. Well, I'm gonna veer this truck back onto SB 226, which took us.
Hey, veer it back onto the Berg Bridge.
Look, I haven't look. I'm gonna go check it here in a little bit and see if it's
You're
fixed
checking
yet.
every
I'm
10
gonna go see it.
minutes.
I heard that it wasn't going up and down yet, but we're gonna find out.
All right.
Okay, Chris, the bill got gutted so mercilessly, so horribly in the Kill Committee, Senate Jude A. And I would say that it was because of Nancy Landry lying. It was because of Comrade Miller, and of course by Senator Jay Luno, who was making arguments about nonsensical things that do not even matter, that were completely not germane to the topic at hand. Then it limped onto the Senate floor, and Comrade Miller and Jay Luno, along with some others, went after the bill again as if it hadn't already been gutted. There was like, I could hear the sound of that. What was it, Braveheart? Or no, it was Karate Kid. Finish him. Like I could hear that coming from them. Like it wasn't enough to have just made it worthless to start with. They wanted it fully dead.
So exactly. So Comrade Miller spends 20, 30 minutes presenting these amendments that gut the bill in committee. The bill becomes acceptable at that point from his perspective, goes on to the Senate. The assumption would be at that point that you're going to support it and pass it. No, it was writhing on the floor, and he finally put it out of its misery, put a bullet in its head on the Senate floor, which just means that not only is he weak and probably totally compromised, he's not even honest about what he says is acceptable to him from one chamber to another, from the committee to the floor.
Yeah.
It's just truly deplorable, the process from beginning to end of this bill. But I want to say that Senator Hodges, I have such great respect for her
Yeah.
to go in, and I thought she acquitted herself so well, answered all of their questions. But as I explained to Senator Hodges, Valerie, there is no acceptable answer to these people when they ask these questions.
True.
The only acceptable answer is don't do anything, throw the bill in the trash can, and go home.
Yeah.
All they are doing is posturing to try and conceal the fact that they are bought and paid for, and that they have put Louisiana citizens in second, third, and fourth place behind the very people who want to attack us and destroy us.
Yeah. Well said. So as a result of this, I think it's fair to say that our election systems remain as vulnerable as ever, and any action taken against foreign adversaries regarding their wrongful holding of immovable property, the state has no recourse to seize and sell that property.
And I have to make one last point on this.
Yeah.
This is important. Senator Hodges' bill did not require the military to expropriate property. It simply gives them the freedom under state law to do so under circumstances where they deem it's necessary. And who is in a better position to know whether or not immovable property located within 50 miles of a military base or critical infrastructure by a foreign adversary poses a threat to our infrastructure? Who's in a better position to make that determination than the military? Nobody. So all she was doing was giving them the power to assess from case to case and make those determinations as you go forward. But apparently, Comrade Miller thought that was too appropriate. It was inappropriate for them to have that power and that authority.
Well, and Chris, I'll go further, because I love to go further. What amount of property? What distance of property? Okay, what about if it's 50 miles from my house? I don't want foreign adversaries having immovable property 50 miles from my house, 5 miles from my house, 200 miles from my house, 6,000 miles from my house. I don't want them to have it. Why should they be able to have it?
I was unable to get a good answer to the question. There were no good answers provided. Again, when you boil it all down, all the bill did was say the military will have the authority, military intelligence, to assess these situations and determine whether or not the location of this immovable property by our enemy 50 miles within a military base poses a threat to our security. That's all the bill did. And it's unbelievable to me that that would die in a
Yeah.
committee.
Well, and just to put a final, perhaps final, we'll see if we still keep ranting about it, point on SB 226 from the outset, Chris, when we saw this bill in the pre-file bill list, we quickly ascertained that it was the single most important bill of session, and that's how we dubbed it. And we really truly believed that this legislature would have the will to pass it, but we saw very clearly, very disgustingly, very disturbingly that they did not.
And Danielle, the reason why I did not specifically testify in favor of this bill and other advocates didn't testify is that we were told by people who were supportive of the bill, strongly supportive, and people who should have known that the bill was in all likelihood not going to have any problem getting through committee. That's what we were told. And so we sat back, allowed Valerie and the two very capable people who were with her to testify, one from Georgia and one from up in DC. One talked about the elections, the other one talked about the bases. And so we didn't do anything. And so we were as stunned as anybody else when the bill was gutted. Because as you said a couple of shows ago, maybe last show, Senator Miller in the last session or two has given really no indication that he is not that he would do something like this. I didn't know that this was his character. We really didn't have any way to know that.
No, I mean, last year, Chris, I went back and looked at our scoring of him. He had a 100% with us score for his voting record last session. So this literally came out of left field, this kind of crazy communistic behavior. I had another thought on that, but it escaped me.
So bottom line is, Danielle, according to Comrade Miller, I'm 100% for the citizens, except when it comes to securing our elections, protecting our land, and protecting our First Amendment right to free speech.
That's right.
Other than those issues, I am 100% red-blooded American patriot.
Well, at least he was. I'm not sure if that's true this session. We'll have to see how the votes stacked up. What I do want to mention to you, Chris, is that what a lesson learned both for those legislators who encouraged you not to testify and to us. Look, whether you think it's going to be a shoo-in or not, the point is it's worth it to get your testimony on the record.
Absolutely. And this should be a lesson to everybody, even pure-minded people who have the right motives and the right objectives, that you can never take anything for granted. And you always have to play like you're 10, 15, 20 points down, always, because you never know.
You never know. All right. Well, let's leave that one right there. I had no idea I was so mad about that, but now I know.
Well, I'm sorry, but I got to say one more point about this.
Okay.
Once again, where is Governor Landry?
Yeah.
I want to put out an APB for our governor. Governor Landry can weigh in on bills that are at best innocuous and at worst harmful to us.
Yeah.
Yet Governor Landry is mute when it comes to expressing support for legislation like this. Where is Governor Landry? Maybe we need to have a show for an hour, 2 hours, and we just entitle it, Where is Governor Landry? And we go through all the bills, whether they passed or failed, that were controversial, where Governor Landry said nothing the whole way through about it. And I think that's not acceptable, because there are a number of bills where he just said nothing. Why? You're the leader of our state. This is a bill that will protect our people and protect our elections, and you say nothing about it. You don't put the weight of your office behind this legislation. That makes absolutely no sense. None.
Excellent point. Maybe Katie can make us a Where's Landry coloring book.
Yes. Where is Landry? Yes. Where is Landry? We need to do that, because, Danielle, there's a lot of bills that we need to be at within the context of which we need to be asking, where was Landry?
Yeah. Well, there's some pretty horrible bills, as you mentioned, that he was front and center pushing and making sure got passed with a hefty hand.
Yeah. In fact, our show should do a side-by-side comparison between the very important bills that Governor Landry was mute on and the bills that were either neutral or harmful to citizens that Governor Landry was not mute on.
Well, that's a great idea. All
Yeah.
right, we'll do that. We'll do that. Okay. Next up, the topic of illegal immigrants. I don't know that we left the topic of illegal immigrants, but we'll continue on it anyway. House Bill 307 by Representative Chance Henry, who is someone that I've gained a lot of respect for this session, Chris, while we're busy talking about all those we have lost tremendous respect for. His bill requires that individuals who are requesting public assistance who are not U.S. citizens be reported to ICE. It's a pretty simple, straightforward bill, but it's a great bill and it protects our tax dollars.
Absolutely. A great bill, and obviously we're 100% behind it, and it should be done. It absolutely should be done. It requires, if someone's in your custody, you have knowledge of someone who is receiving public benefits or applying for public benefits, and they're illegal in the country, illegal in the state, you got to report them to immigration, report them to ICE. You have to do it, and it's a duty that you have as a public official. Simple,
Plain and simple.
straightforward.
Yeah. It passed the House in a party line vote, 67-26. It passed the Senate also in a party line vote with the notable absences of Patrick Connick and Bob Owen. Chris, that's
absent
interesting.
Owen.
Well, yeah, absent Owen, but also since Senator Connick had such a problem understanding what the Chinese threat and national security threat was in our country, it's very interesting that he would be absent for this vote. I'll just underscore that and leave it right there. The bill has been sent to the governor. He has not yet signed it.
Yeah. As I think you said before, Danielle, I really don't anticipate any issue with Governor Landry signing this, because if he doesn't sign this is something, as you mentioned in pre-show, would definitely put him on President Trump's radar screen if he's not there already. Because I do not believe that Governor Landry, as much as he postures himself to be a close ally of President Trump is extraordinarily smart and insightful, and I do not believe that he's being fooled. The wool is not being pulled over his eyes when it comes to Jeff Landry.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, next up, House Bill 436 by Representative Gabe Firment. And this is a bill that I think it's mainly, Chris, related to auto accidents, and it prohibits the recovery of certain kinds of damages if an illegal alien gets into a traffic accident. Is that fair?
If you're here illegally and you're in a wreck and it's somebody else's fault, you do not get to recover from them or their insurance company past or future lost wages or what's called emotional damage recovery, which usually is the big part of the recovery, the emotional distress and all that. None of that. It would allow and require the insurance company to pay your medicals, and I think that's in order to prevent you from becoming somehow a ward of the state or becoming a drain on society. So the basic medicals could be paid, but nothing beyond that. And that applies even if you had your own insurance. It doesn't matter. If you're here illegally, this bill really severely guts your right to any recovery in a car wreck.
And Chris, does this add to enhance the bill that Senator Facey brought last year that was touching on a similar topic?
I think his bill require, if you were stopped and you were here illegally and you didn't have automobile liability coverage, I think you had to be reported immediately and kicked out of the country, deported.
Okay.
All this has to do is with what you can recover in the event that you file a claim in an accident case.
Okay. It was a nearly party line vote in the House. It was 69-17 with Democrats Daryl Adams, Robbie Carter, and Pat Moore joining the Republicans in favor. And in the Senate, it was 27-10 on a party line vote. It was signed by Governor Landry on May 28th and becomes effective August 1st. Next up is House Bill 554 by Representative Dixon McMakin. This bill, you can talk about this, Chris. It's related to illegal aliens and driver's license and even non-citizens who are here lawfully, the markings on their driver's licenses.
The bill prohibits anybody who's here illegally from getting any kind of a state ID or a driver's license. I'm a little bit perplexed as to why that's not already illegal
Yeah,
in
it should be.
Louisiana for someone who's here illegally to get a state ID or a driver's license. But anyway, the bill prohibits that. And the bill also says that if you are here legally, if you're a lawful resident of our state, you can get a driver's license and a state ID, which you should be able to do. But there is a code on there that restricts your ability to register to vote, like some kind of a flag. If you try to register to vote, you can't do it because of the restriction code that's on this ID that you get. So it's a good bill, I think, as far as it goes. But it was in the context of that committee, and it's Dixon McMakin. So thank you, Dixon, for bringing the legislation that is being supported by your very, very good friend Nancy Landry, which you never cease to remind us that she's your very good friend. But the problem here is within the context of the committee hearing on this good bill, Nancy Landry stated in response to Senator Carter's questions that she's not enforcing current law. Current law in Louisiana already requires election officials to require proof of citizenship from anybody who's registering to vote, proof that you're a citizen before you can register to vote. She said that we're on the honor system. If someone comes in and whether they say they're a citizen or a non-citizen, they check whatever they check. We just take them at their word and go forward. And I was stunned. I almost fell off my chair. I'm thinking the law in Louisiana requires you to make sure that they provide proof of citizenship when they're trying to register to vote. Anybody. Why are you not enforcing the law? This is massively important. Why are you not enforcing the law?
Well, and Chris, I mean, maybe this is ignorance speaking, but why couldn't she have just called the Office of Motor Vehicles and said, y'all got to help me out. We got to figure something out. I don't know that a law was really required to do this. It seems like it could just be an administrative effort.
Of course, and that was exactly Bert Calais made that exact point that we really didn't need this law. She has the administrative authority and the administrative power to come up with a mechanism by which to verify citizenship when people are trying to register to vote.
So this is a delay tactic. This is to paper over the fact that she's done nothing for the last year to protect our elections from foreigners voting.
That's exactly right. So
yeah.
If you start from step one, she already had the administrative authority to do this, but nonetheless, the bill comes forward that she supports. But before, and the original language in the bill made it effective as soon as signed by the governor, but she wanted to push it off 6 months and make it effective and enforceable January of 2025 instead of June of 2024. And now we find out that even though it's now been in effect for close to 6 months, she's not doing anything to enforce the law, and she's provided no guidance to the registrars of voter on about how to go, no system whatsoever.
Yeah. Chris, is the Office of Motor Vehicles, is the head person there appointed by Governor Landry?
Yes.
Do you happen to know? Are they doing anything? I mean, we know that all of our information has been compromised at least, 5-6 times now?
Well, apparently they're not doing anything because this bill came about, 554 came about, which now requires them to put a restriction code on people who are here legally, who are getting IDs that shows they can't use it to register to vote. If they were already doing something similar, I'm not sure why the need for the bill would have been. I don't think there would have been a need for the bill. But another issue with this, Danielle, is, and again, I think the bill is good as far as it goes, but what about all of the people in the state right now, the thousands and thousands and thousands of people walking around illegally who managed to get a state ID or a driver's license or have insurance walking around? What about those people? There's no restriction on their IDs when they go try to register to vote.
You're right, Chris. And I talked to, I had on For the Love of Freedom a couple weeks back, Edward Solomon, who came on this show the end of last year, and I asked him about voter rolls and how often they should be cleaned, and he said they shouldn't exist. I thought that was so brilliant. They shouldn't exist. You should go in there and show proof of citizenship, proof of residency every single time you vote, period. No voter rolls.
And you're saying you should have to do it every single time you vote.
Yes. Yes, because a voter roll is only it's a weapon used for corruption.
Exactly. Danielle, that's so true. Would that also preclude the need, what you just said, to have to go in and renew your registration to
Correct.
vote? So
Correct.
basically, it's as though every time you go vote, it's as though you've never voted before.
Correct. It's
That
brilliant.
would take care of the problem. And is it really that onerous? Is it really that onerous when you go vote to be able to show that you're a citizen?
You need one bill, which we know that everyone has more than one bill, so that's okay. And two, you need either your license, your real ID, which is its own little can of worms, but either your real ID or your passport.
Or a birth certificate?
Or I guess you need a picture. You need a picture.
Oh yeah, a picture. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a way to do it, and it's just not being done. I guess it's just not at the top of Nancy Landry's priority list at this time.
No, she's got computers on the mind.
Yeah, well, she's got to make sure that no 70-year-old women go over to any voting precincts and try to conduct an exit poll. That is a matter of immediate priority, which she's handling quite well.
Well, that's true. Thank God that threat's been handled.
Thank God for that. I sleep so much better at night knowing that 70-year-old Shreveport women cannot go do an exit interview at a local polling precinct, Danielle. I'm telling you right now, she has her priorities in the right order.
Look, I cannot wait for those ladies to go and set up their exit poll and sue the living daylights out of Nancy Landry.
I think it's possible. I think it's absolutely possible, and it would be poetic justice if they do.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's try and make some progress here. Okay, on Dixon's bill, the House voted 75-21 with a few Democrats joining the Republicans in favor of the bill. They were Daryl Adams, Ken Brass, Chad Brown, and Marcus Bryant. Thank you all, gentlemen. And in the Senate, 28-11 on a strict party line vote. The next bill is Senate Bill 15 by Senator Jay Morris, and it prohibits any interference with ICE efforts, with any law enforcement or immigration-related efforts. Of course, probably at the beginning of session, people may have said that this wasn't necessary. I think by the end of session, it became very glaringly obvious that it is necessary, and it's an important bill. To make sure that Tom Homan and all those under his watch are not impeded in any way by Louisiana politicians, number one, or citizens.
Yes.
Okay.
And it criminal and
for
Danielle, and just to make sure the listeners know, the bill criminalizes
Great.
The failure to or the either the by omission or commission any interference, direct or indirect, with enforcement efforts regarding illegal immigrants. It criminalizes it. It creates the crime of malfeasance in office if you do that. So these public officials actually under Senator Morris's bill can be subject to arrest and prosecution for interfering with federal immigration efforts.
Great. I mean, I think if we were honest about a lot of people, a lot of the politicians who could potentially come in the crosshairs for going to jail for this, they probably are already criminally liable for some other act that they have done.
Probably a reasonable extrapolation.
Yeah. Okay. It passed on the House floor 71-30. Chad Brown joined the Republicans in support. Stephanie Hilferty, Barbara Freiberg, and Dennis Bamberg were absent for that vote. In the Senate, it was 28-10 on a party line vote. It's been sent to the governor, and he has, as of yet, not signed it. Chris, I checked again this morning, just so you know, and there's been no new vetoed bills since June 12th, and no new signed bills since June 17th. So I don't know if he's planning on doing a flurry of signing activities sometime later this week. But as you and I discussed, I think we should see all of these actions finalized at the latest by mid-July.
Yeah, we shall see. And this is not a bill. SB 15 is certainly not a bill that I would anticipate Governor Landry vetoing.
No, that would not put him in a very good light.
No.
Okay, next up, Senate Bill 100 by Senator Blake Miguez, and this is about data collection for the legal status of anyone who's here collecting state services. So if you are applying for state services, or if you are already getting state services, the state has a right to know whether you are here legally.
Yeah. And so this is a complement to Representative Chance Henry's bill, which Henry's bill requires reporting to anybody who's applying for or receiving benefits, whereas Senator Miguez's bill is really it's a money bill because it requires an itemization of how much of public benefits are going to illegal immigrants in our state. So it's equally important for slightly different reasons. But Henry's bill and Miguez's bill, between the two of them, I think should provide transparency and hopefully put an end to illegal immigrants receiving large amounts of taxpayer money and public benefits. It's just not appropriate, particularly when there are Louisiana citizens who are very deserving and are not receiving what they deserve and what they need.
That's right. It's also offensive to me on the face that illegal immigrants have been collecting state services, any kind of financial support, state services, and I think it should be malfeasance in office for any state bureaucrat or state agent of whatever kind that has been party to supporting the financial comfort of illegal aliens in the state of Louisiana.
That's a great point, Danielle. So maybe Senator Morris, his bill, assuming it's signed, SB 15, maybe that law can be amended next session to also include in the crime of malfeasance in office any public official in Louisiana who knowingly and deliberately authorizes or disseminates public money to an illegal immigrant.
Yeah, I think it should. I absolutely think it should. And they should have to pay back out of their pocket because we're not going to get it out of the illegal.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point.
I'm on a tear this morning, Chris.
Indeed.
All right. This bill passed the Senate 2511 on party line vote. Bob Owen was absent. Oh my gosh. Along with Patrick McMath and Adam Bass. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder how many days Bob Owen went to session this year.
Well, we don't call him absent Owen for nothing.
That's right. Okay. And it passed the House with a few Democratic crossovers. Chris, there are Democrats in the House who believe in state sovereignty and who believe in the right of the citizen over the illegal, which is a really refreshing thing to see. They were Darrell Adams, Chad Brown, Robbie Carter. This bill was sent to the governor, and he's not yet signed it.
Some of these Democrats, Danielle, as we talked about yesterday, could end up higher on our scorecard than some of the Republicans, which is a testament in and of itself.
It is. Yeah, it is. Okay, now on to budget reform. There's a couple bills by Representative Philip Tarver. The first is House Bill 295. It's an appropriations bill. It would be a constitutional amendment, and it limits the amount of revenues that can be appropriated for recurring expenses
from the general fund.
From the general fund. Would you talk about that a little bit, Chris? Because I don't remember the details of this one.
It just basically puts a limit on the amount of money that the state can spend on recurring expenses. And God knows we need a backstop. We need some brakes on our spending in the state of Louisiana. It was a good bill, but it seems like not just this bill, but another one we'll talk about. Any bill that provides a concrete ceiling on the amount of money that the government can spend in our state never seems to get through. It never seems to get through the whole process. I don't quite understand that. I don't understand why this bill gets through the House. I know you'll talk about it, but then is never called over. Was it Senate Revenue once it got over there?
Finance, yeah.
Senate
Chris,
Finance.
when you're looking at your credit card bill, or if you go into your credit card company website, you can see what recurring expenses you have. And you can choose at that point, oh, I forgot I wanted to cancel Spotify, or I forgot that I was paying for that service that I don't use anymore. The state's not doing that.
They're not. And to be honest with you, this bill would incentivize them to do just what you just said. And
That's
yet
it.
and yet no provision. I'm so curious to get an explanation for why this bill never made it over to Senate Finance.
Yeah, well, it passed the House Civil Law and House Appropriations Committee. Both committees was passed unanimously, so they didn't have a problem with it. It passed the House 84 to 14 with significant Democratic support. 13 Democrats joined the Republicans in support of this. People see the need for this because they understand personal finances. And but it never got picked up in Senate Finance, as you said, Chris. And you and I were discussing this before the show, but I lay the blame of that wholly and completely at Senate President Cameron Henry's feet, because if he wanted it to move, it would have moved. And we know that Senate President Cameron Henry, as you so astutely pointed out, seems to jump when Governor Landry says jump, and so we can also lay some blame there.
And no question about it. I think one of the two, or the two of them collectively, no question. Everything would move if the governor wants it to move, and certainly on the Senate side would move if Cameron Henry wanted it, and that's where this bill was. I just don't understand why this wouldn't have moved. And I think it's because they just don't. And you said this earlier as well, Danielle. I think that they do not want to have any kind of limits on what they can spend.
Yeah, and they want no accountability. Chris, would you talk about what J.C. Harmon had to say about the budget this year? Because I know we're not necessarily picking up the full appropriations package as a topic to cover, but he had some pretty interesting insights on as he dug into the budget.
There is a HB 507 by Representative Julie Emerson would basically allow all the money to be taken out of the Revenue Stabilization Fund, which is a fund specifically set up to fund our roads, to get our roads and our transportation infrastructure back on track in the state of Louisiana. It cannot be used for any other purpose. Representative Emerson's bill would allow removal of billions of dollars, I think all of it, and transferring that into the general fund where it can be used for any purpose whatsoever. So squandered in any way the legislature determines needs to be done. So that is something that's very problematic to J.C. Harmon, and quite frankly, very problematic to me as well. And he's called, and he's the one who told me about this a couple of weeks ago when we were down at the legislature. So it's like they just don't want any restrictions on where or how they can spend our money.
Chris, we have to get our elections fixed before I burst into flames. These people are completely out of control.
I mean, it appears that way for sure. And we just have to continue to keep an eye on them and make sure that the people know really what's going on. That's all. That's what we can do.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one thing, Chris, whoever decides to run for governor, I want to make sure that they run on a platform of returning power to the people, returning accountability to government, believing in small government. And I'm not talking any of this BS rhetoric. I am sick of rhetoric. I'm sick of talking points. I want someone who has a track record. I want someone who's not afraid to take a punch in the face. I am sick of these people.
Well, I'll tell you, you're describing someone who just announced for the U.S. Senate, which I don't think he should have. I think he should be running for governor, and I think other people feel the same way. You just described Senator Blake Miguez because he has a great track record. He's demonstrated that he has the backbone and the confidence to stand up for the citizens of Louisiana. And I continue to encourage him to consider a different path, which is to
Yeah.
run for governor as opposed to the U.S. Senate. And it's precisely because I think he would be a very, very fine governor for the state of Louisiana. And I hate the idea of muddying up the waters in a U.S. Senate race when we have a Republican in the race who's proven that he's a Trump loyalist and a MAGA guy. We just, I know we're digressing, but we do this to each other time and time and time again, Danielle. We engage in this internecine execution style warfare. Somebody limps into a runoff, bloody and wounded against a Democrat, and we do it over and over and over again. I noticed that the Democrats don't tend to do that.
No, no. They understand they understand how a pack operates.
They understand how a pack operates. It's like evil when it comes to them is sort of a more potent semen of union on their side than good is on our side, which maybe means that not everybody is operating from the good on our side.
Yeah, and when I say pack, I don't mean political action committee. I mean
Oh,
like
yeah.
a wolf. I mean like a wolf pack.
Right,
Just
exactly.
for clarity. Okay,
Got it.
let's move on to Rep. Tarver's other bill on appropriations, and this bill, it did have quite a bit of debate around it. It would have provided limitations on appropriations to NGOs. Again, passed the House Appropriations Committee unanimously. It passed the House with some debate, but 4 Democrats still joined Republicans. It was a vote of 73-22 with Chad Brown, Robbie Carter, Steve Jackson, and Pat Moore joining the majority of Republicans. Never got picked up in Senate Finance. Of course, this can go. I deliver it just like a nasty pizza to Cameron Henry's doorstep.
Absolutely. Limit on the amount of money that can be appropriated to non-governmental organizations. You know, those governmental organizations that are grifting off of us on the federal level
Yeah.
to the tune of billions and billions and billions of dollars. Those organizations passes the House, as you said, Danielle, goes over to the Senate and dies in, well, if it even got to Senate Finance.
Chris, no, it didn't. It didn't get picked up in Senate Finance. Was this the bill that required separate appropriations package for NGOs, or did that one get through?
I believe, I don't know right off whether this is the same bill or not.
Okay.
But the bottom line is this is a good bill. Any bill, in my opinion, that imposes limits on the amount of our taxpayer money that can be spent on anything, but particularly to
Non-essential
non-governmental
function.
organizations. Exactly, I think is a good bill, and it just
Yeah.
seems like those bills very often do not get through.
Yeah, it does. Now, Senator Heather Cloud's bill did get through, and it's a transparency bill related to NGOs and any monies going to NGOs. Tell us a little bit more about that one.
It's a good bill. It requires a database that's set up where NGOs have to post specifically what they're seeking the money for, how much money they're seeking. They have to provide financial reports from their NGOs, and they're held accountable for making sure that the money that they get is spent for the purposes. They have to include how much how much of the money is going to be going to their administration, and how much is actually going to be going to the projects that they are working on, or the recipients who are supposed to receive it. So it's a very good transparency bill. And this bill got through, and I think maybe part of the reason why it got through, it's a good bill, but it doesn't impose any concrete limits on the amount of money that can be appropriated to these NGOs. So maybe for that reason, it was more palatable to our more profligate spenders in the Louisiana state legislature.
Yeah. Well, that checks out. It passed the Senate 28-9 with Senator Jay Luno joining the Republicans. That's a campaign of shock and awe right there.
Indeed.
And then it passed the House 74-26 with 4 Democrats joining the Republicans in support. They were Darrell Adams, Marcus Bryant, Robbie Carter, and Joy Walters. It's been sent to the governor, and he has not yet signed it.
Yeah.
All right. The last bill under this moniker of, I guess, budget, income tax, or budget and tax is House Bill 333. It's by Representative Dixon McMakin. We talked about this bill early in session, Chris, and I was incensed at this bill because Representative McMakin outlined in the bill that it would take 15 years to reduce the state income tax to zero. And now we know why it could take 15 years to reduce the state income tax to zero, because they have 0.0 will to reduce any spending whatsoever, to even put any limitations on their spending or put any transparency around their spending.
So well correlated, Danielle. So well correlated, and also keep in mind that it's not going to take. It wouldn't take Representative McMakin. It would take 15 years to reduce the state income tax for ordinary Louisiana citizens, but he offered a bill this session that would allow immediate elimination of state income tax for college athletes who are
That's
making
right.
millions of dollars in the state of Louisiana. That can be done immediately, but ordinary, hardworking Louisiana citizens will not see an elimination of their state income taxes until 2040. It's hard not to appreciate the discrepancy there.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, neither one of those bills moved very
Yeah.
far, so we're still at ground zero here.
Amen.
I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/dwalker. Get to shopping. That helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at danielle@freedomstate.us for more information.
All right. On that happy note, let's talk about DEI and merit-based job security. Okay, Representative Emily Chenevere, we've talked about her bill at length, Chris, but hers was House Bill 685, and it would have gotten DEI out of state agencies. In my view, this is absolutely critically important if we wanted to, for instance, address the situation at the Office of Motor Vehicles where they didn't have the initiative or the will to figure out a way to not give illegal immigrants driver's license.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example of DEI at work, where excellence and merit are sacrificed at the altar of mediocrity and gender based preference and race based preference. And that is the result right there. The fact that we have thousands of people in Louisiana who shouldn't even be in the state walking around with state IDs, driver's license, and even insurance. That is the direct result of that policy that you're talking about. Her bill would have eliminated this garbage, this gender based, race based preferential treatment from our public agencies and from our colleges in Louisiana, passes through the House and ends up, Danielle, passes through the Senate and ends up dying on the Senate floor, despite our absolute hell raising about it during the last days of the session. Senator President Cameron Henry is the only person who should be held properly accountable for the fact that House Bill 685 failed on the Senate floor. And again, the governor, where is Governor Landry? This has to go on the list. Where was Governor Landry?
Yeah, well, it passed the House 57-32 with opposition from a few Republicans. So I want to name their names. They were Beth Billings, Vincent Cox, and Jeff Wiley, and a slew of other Republicans were absent, Chris. Some of these seem purposeful, some of these maybe less so. But Ryan Boriak, Jacob Broad, Jessica Domingue, Brian Fontenot, Barbara Freiberg, Foy Gadberry, Stephanie Hilferty, Tim Kerner, Jacob Landry, Nicholas Muscarello, Joe Stagney, Lauren Ventrella, and Roger Wilder were all absent for that vote, which I would consider extremely important.
Extraordinarily important. I mean, there's there's no reason if you're going to be present at any vote, then you got to be present for this. Freiberg, it's like again what
What's
we
she
talked about
doing?
earlier.
I mean,
Where are you? Where's Barbara?
She and Bob Owen are in the same category for right now, huh?
Maybe the meme should be where is Jeff? Where was Jeff? Where was Barbara? Or
Where
maybe
was
we just
Bob?
do where was Bob? Well, we know all about where was Bob for sure. But anyway, yeah, this is hugely important, and the fact that it would die in the Senate is just totally unacceptable.
It's extremely unacceptable. Next up, House Bill 429 by Representative Delisha Boyd. This was her bill that would have, she brought it last year. I don't know if she may have even brought it the year before that, Chris, but basically it would have created the legal framework to discriminate based on gender identity and sexual orientation when it comes to employment.
Yeah, and I testified against it last year, and we expressed our opposition to it this year, but we sort of handicapped early on that this bill is not going to go anywhere because
Thankfully,
thankfully, because it basically say even with some of these rhinos, because it basically says that an employer who chooses not to hire someone or to fire someone based upon their gender identity. Let's just say it's someone who is clearly a man but identifies as a woman, that would not be legitimate grounds for a mechanic shop to fire somebody or for somebody like that. That would be gender identity would be a protected class in employment on the same level with your race or your religion or your creed. The
yeah.
same level of protection. Just utter lunacy.
It is utter lunacy. I do think that we have some alignment. I think there were enough conservatives to get this over to make sure this was killed. But also, I'm going to also be cynical on this and say this is one of those items that I would imagine lobby was aligned with our reasoning and agreed with that. And so I bet lobby also put out a call that said, kill this bill.
Oh, I would imagine that Lobby, even though they're not the organization they were 20, 30, 40 years ago, on this, I would strongly believe and hope that they came down on the right side and hopefully registered their opposition to this.
Yeah, I just have every reason to believe they did. The next bill is Senate Bill 8 by Senator Jay Morris. This is his proposed constitutional amendment to reclassify civil servants as unclassified, basically so they can be fired more easily. Thank God for that. This bill passed the House 70-28, with Daryl Adams and Robbie Carter joining the Republicans in support. Notably, and I think people are going to start to pick up on a pattern here, that Barbara Freiberg, Joe Stagney, and Z Zarang, actually, they weren't absent. They joined the Democrats in opposition to it. Polly Thomas was absent for the vote. The Senate passed it on strict party lines, 28-8, and it will go, I believe, Chris, on a statewide ballot is the next stop.
Yep, and the ballot will basically say, all it will say is, do you support a constitutional amendment that authorizes the legislature to reclassify certain categories of employment in Louisiana from classified civil service to non-classified civil service? And if it's approved, then the legislature would have to go back and pass legislation recategorizing some of these employment classes. And as you said, Danielle, the ultimate purpose of this is to make it easier to manage these employees who right now are locked into a civil service system that makes it virtually impossible to demote them, to transition them, to discipline them, to reprimand them, or to fire them. And so, and I can't help but believe that that is also a part of why our state services are, in many respects, are inefficient and incompetent, because there is no danger of them losing their jobs, and it's human nature at that point. It creates a disincentive to be excellent and to be your best. It's pretty simple.
Yeah,
So
it
this
is
bill
pretty.
would allow it.
Yeah, and it's a great step forward. It would be an even stronger step forward if Representative Chenevier's bill would have passed, and they could have also purged the agencies of this DEI garbage. So, maybe, Chris, maybe Governor Landry's executive order on the issue will be sufficient, but I don't have any anecdotal evidence to support that.
I don't either, and I don't know whether or not is that executive order still in effect. I mean, you know, you have to renew it. I don't know, but certainly it doesn't appear as though it's being vigorously enforced if it is in effect.
Yeah, we should look into that.
Definitely.
All right. If anybody listening has any insight on that, we'd love to know. Drop us an email. Okay, Chris. Now, kind of the last topic for the day, probably to the great relief of our listeners, criminal justice. Just two bills.
There are some nerds like us out there, Danielle.
There are. And hopefully I didn't put them in a position to have to up their blood pressure medicine today. All right.
Does ivermectin work for blood pressure? Because that would be good news.
I don't know. We need to ask Dr. Abraham.
Yeah.
Okay. House Bill 457 by Representative Denise Marcel. We've talked about this all session long. This was her bill that would make it so that anyone who is put in solitary confinement while they're in prison would have access to educational materials. And Chris, we were part of ensuring that religious materials were included in that. It passed the House unanimously. In the Senate, it was opposed by two Republicans, Jay Morris and Caleb Klein-Peter. I'm not really understanding why anyone would oppose this. It doesn't get them out of jail. Obviously, they're still sitting in solitary confinement. They just have the opportunity to read.
Yeah, I don't quite understand why Senator Klein-Peter or Senator Morris would have voted no on this. It doesn't make any sense, other than possibly the inference that they just don't have the capacity to vote on anything that appears to show any deference or any conciliation toward people who are in prison or convicted criminals. I'm not sure, but either way, I'm just glad it went through, and I'm very glad that Representative Marcel was amenable to the amendment that we suggested on it.
Yeah, me too. It was signed by the governor, and it's going to become effective on August 1st. All right. Last bill of the day, Senate Bill 39 by Senator Jay Morris. This bill we hated from the outset, and then we moved into a posture of not caring so much because of the amendments that got put on it. But this bill, Chris, would have given the state a free pass on holding prisoners past their release date. Would you remind our listeners? I know that there was some testimony, I believe, by the corrections chief that they were making improvements on getting their out dates right. But just remind our listeners about the issue at hand and what this bill would have really, in a nasty way, tried to do.
Yeah, in its original form, Danielle, the bill would have immunized the state from any liability for holding inmates, people who have served their time in prison past their out date, past the date when their sentence has been served and they should be returned to liberty and returned to the community. It would have immunized the state from liability, responsibility for that, and was just a dastardly bill in its original form. We testified against it in committee, and other people did too, and there were a lot of concerns raised. So a lot of the bill was gutted, and basically now the bill essentially is just sort of a reiteration of existing law substantially because of a lot of the concerns that were raised. So I'm not concerned about it at this point. I do want to mention that one of the ways in which the bill was able to get passed, even in amended form, was that the chief counsel for the Department of Corrections testified in committee that DOC is coordinating with law enforcement agencies and the courts and really streamlining and making their communication system more efficient so that they will know and be able to calculate specifically when these inmates are supposed to get out and make sure that they're released timely. And I believed him. His testimony was very good. And I think that he understands the importance of making sure that this is done right. And he said in the committee that this is not going to be a problem going forward. And for him to say that was very comforting to me and to many others who simply think this is a matter of fundamental fairness and
Yeah.
fundamental justice. And you have to hold the people responsible who are causing the problem, and not, as the original bill did, simply try to immunize them for responsibility for problems that they create. So at this point, in the final version of the bill, again, it just reiterates really what current law is. And we've received assurance that DOC is doing something to improve its systems to make sure that this is not a recurring problem going forward.
Yeah, that's so encouraging because, Chris, these people who believe so strongly in justice at the courthouse appear to not believe so strongly in justice when it comes to the jailhouse. And I have a problem with that.
Me too, especially when one of the core truths of our faith is the power of redemption,
Yeah.
and the redemption of Christ. And there comes a point in time when your dues have been paid, your tears have been cried, and your sins have been washed away, and you move forward with a fresh start. And that's the way I look at the end dates for these inmates. Everybody should have a chance to move in a different direction and to begin their lives. And the idea that people would be kept in prison beyond the date when their dues to society have been paid, to me, is deeply troubling. And I'm glad that because of our objections and the objections of a lot of other people, that won't be a reality.
Yeah. All right. Well, that rounds us out, Chris. On Thursday, a reminder, we'll be back with our final recap episode. We will be covering health freedom issues, abortion, personal liberties, DOTD, insurance, and tort reform. So there's still a lot of ground to cover, but we are 3/4 of the way through the recap. And I think, we of course we focus a lot more, seemingly, Chris, on the losses than the wins, because they're so enraging. But we got a lot of great
A
things
lot
done
of
this
great
session.
wins, a lot of great wins,
Yeah.
and we're very positive people. But we have to give both sides of the coin here, Danielle,
Yeah.
so people will know and be motivated. So that's what we're doing, and we'll continue to do it. And we have not yet begun to fight.
That's true. That's true. And Chris, I just want to remind our listeners, in case they missed the episode where you said that the State of Freedom is now the #2 political podcast in the state. That's so exciting. And that is just a testament to our listeners, to the interest of the citizens of the state of Louisiana, of knowing the truth, of hearing the unvarnished truth, of being active in the civic arena, especially when it comes to legislation, but all manner of things that are outside of the legislative session that we are covering. I also want to mention that we are only behind, the #1 in the state is Louisiana Lefty. And I believe there's only one major leftist political podcast. So, Chris, that to me says that we are the #1 conservative political podcast in the state. And because we feel like we've now proven ourselves in a way, and because our numbers have gone up, and our listenership has continued to increase, our reach has continued to increase, we are now open for sponsorships, for advertisers. We are looking for like-minded businesses who would be proud to support our work and whose work we would be proud to spotlight and showcase here. So if you are interested, please reach out to me, Danielle at freedomstate.us. We'd love to have that conversation.
We would absolutely love to be able to promote and advertise your product on our show, and we will do it with vim, vigor, and persuasion. So we look forward to that, Danielle. And you're exactly right about the ranking through from FeedSpot. The only inference is that we must be #1 as a conservative political podcast in Louisiana, and I really think that it's because I don't know of any other podcast that does what we do in the detail that we do it. And it's the information that we get out there that is just so important. You can't have a real representative republic, representative democracy, if voters do not know, if they don't have the information they need to make informed choices.
Yeah.
And that is the unique niche that only, from what I can see, only we fill. And this is how we are going to continue to return our government to the citizens. This is how we're going to do it. And it is just a powerful, powerful platform that we are increasingly developing. And so I would love to join and become partners with, as you said, like-minded businesses who view government, view society, view the Constitution the way that we do. And we'll move forward together.
Yeah, and Chris, just also another reminder to the listeners. I know you were out in Lafayette last night talking to Louisiana Republican Assembly group there, and you came down to Terrebonne and joined us for a conversation, a legislative wrap-up here for We the People Bayou community. So if any other organizations in the state are interested in getting some insights on your state rep, your state senator, how they stacked up against the issues that concern you the most, we would be happy to come and talk to you about it.
Absolutely, and we will give you the unvarnished truth, vote by vote, bill by important bill of how your local rep and your state senator voted on important things from the record, not our opinion, not their opinion, just the facts, just the votes.
Yeah.
So you'll know what to do and how to respond. And I just think it's hugely important. It would be a real honor to be able to come and speak to any group in your area.
Yeah. And so just a final reminder to our listeners, we are listener supported. Please like this show, subscribe on all the platforms, go to freedomstate.us, subscribe on every platform that you use. That helps us out. Give us a rating, give us a 5-star review so that we continue to boost up in the ratings, and make a donation there if you can. Also support LCAG and the work that LCAG is doing. It is an invaluable service to the citizens of this state, and together we will be able to get the people out that need to get out and get the people in that need to get in, and that is the name of the game.
We will continue to level the playing field with your support and your help. With small monthly memberships across the state to the State of Freedom and to LCAG, we are going to win. We are going to level the playing field, and we will topple these giants of these corrupt special interest groups and their lobbyists who swarm the Capitol like buzzards feeding on a dead carcass. We're not going to be doing this anymore. We're going to return our government to the people with your help. So support us. Let's join together. Let's move forward, and let's win.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless. The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.